But I remember I hit that goal. I hit $100,000 in a day. It's the base hits, it's the years, it's the hundreds of trading days of base hits in the middle that makes me a successful trader. And I'll tell everybody, be an entrepreneur, have multiple income streams,
Yes.
take the pressure off yourself. If I told you how much I made in my first 7 years of trading, anybody wanting to learn how to trade would say, no way, waste of time. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And then if I tell you what I did the next 7 years, you'd say, I want that. You can't have one without the other. And so I had to accept that people have to learn the pain themselves for the lesson to stick. That's how you know someone's legit. You got to be talking about your losses, because if you are not highlighting your losses, then you are hiding something. If you are a trader, leveling up as a trader can level you up in other aspects of your life. There's always something that you can improve upon. That's part of the fun. That's part of the self-improvement aspect, both in trading, and then that trickles through to your life. I can observe the emotions as they're happening and not act on them. What separates those who succeed from those who fail is, number one, you don't blow up. So it's an emotional detachment from the outcomes, and that's essential as well. I mean, honestly, I shudder to think what would have happened if I lost that $3,000. I wouldn't be a trader right now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to David Worrell Trading. We have an amazing show for you today. I have awesome charting man Dan here with over 14 plus years of experience. I am so humble and happy to be in front of him today. We have a lot to go over. Dan the man, how are you doing, brother?
I'm great, David. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I cannot believe I get to chat with you today, and I'm sure we are going to have an awesome, awesome show. So I hope you guys stick around. We have a doozy. Yes, a doozy just for you. We are back, baby, and we have a few things I just want to go over really quick. If you want to know more about the charting guys or Dan the man himself, the very first place I found Dan the man was right here on his YouTube page. He's got over 190,000 subscribers, but what I find more impressive about Dan the man is he has over 10,000 videos of free content of doing technical analysis, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I think I have a little over 400, and I thought that was awesome. And then I seen that he had over 10,000 free YouTube videos that you guys can go check out. Make sure that you hit that like and subscribe on his channel. For as long as I've been watching him, I don't think I've heard him say it one time. But regardless, guys, go there. It'll be in the link in the description down below. And there's one last thing before we get started. I found this on his website. If you guys go here, you can take a free 2-hour technical analysis trading course. I've been doing this for a little over 5 years, and I started taking this course. I'm about halfway through it. I love it. There's 43 lessons packed in this 2 hours, and it's just absolutely awesome. I think it's so impressive, and I would go through it twice if you're a beginner, 3 times. Taking it as as a little bit more seasoned, I'm still like just ingesting all this information. So Dan the man, what's going on, brother? Tell me, you're in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, Western North Carolina.
How is the weather?
It's good right now, but we're about to get, back down to single digits the next couple of days. So
I love it.
Not looking forward to that.
No, I bet not. But it was so impressive too seeing your home. I love that you did the life of a trader, and you walk through your beautiful home, all the artwork in all of your room. It just seems just like it's so beautiful, and I really think that probably adds to a lot of your balance in trading, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where it's like, wow, I own a home now for the first time, and I can do whatever I want on the walls. And I've got a ton of artist friends, so figured, help them out with a little bit of money during COVID and have some really cool walls and some cool rooms.
I think that's awesome, because that's one great thing that I really enjoyed following you. You can see you're a genuine person. You love to help other people, and you've created this amazing free community that they can join. Of course, you have other things that they can offer if they want to take more advanced courses and things like that. But what I love is you created a community from nothing just by trading and focusing on what you do and what you love to do. And you have been on top of it, Dan. So We're just going to jump right into it. I got to ask the very first question that I would always want to ask any seasoned vet, and I think any new trader is just so excited to ask is, what got you so interested in trading?
So initially it was, I watched my dad growing up do the 9 to 5 grind, commuting into the city, into Boston, and, 45 minutes each way, sitting in traffic, sub freezing temperatures.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, I don't want to do that. So I went to school and I was a business management major, but the entire time I was in school, it was essentially, what can I do to position myself where I don't have to grind a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life? And the internet is full of opportunities, and trading was just one of them that I played around with. And it's for me, it's a video game that I enjoy so much, and treating it that way, and it obviously has tons of opportunity.
It absolutely does. A ton of opportunities. And those opportunities can lead to a lot of downfall. And I'm sure in the beginning, it was probably a little bit more difficult than where you're at today, where you have such a defined, focused process. Can you tell me a little bit about the beginning, what you started with, and kind of your trading philosophy and how it has grown and manifested into what you do today?
Yeah, so I was, back in college is when I first got interested. I was probably 21 years old, and cannabis stocks. I saw the shift in the country. I saw the sentiment shift that was underway. California had the first ever vote to legalize for a state, and it failed the first time around. But I could see the shift that was underway, and so I thought, I can take advantage of this. And I was either going to go to Canada and learn how to grow industrial hemp, or I was gonna, play around in the stock market. And those were that was the fork in the road. And so I chose, I had $3,000 saved up from high school jobs, and 2008 had just happened. So, my safe mutual funds just lost 40% of their value. And so my mindset was, all right, if I'm going to lose money without doing anything, I want to be the one losing my money. I'm going to give this a try, and, put $3,000 into cannabis penny stocks. And I just lucked out in terms of stumbling into a bull market, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I made all the mistakes as well. But it worked out enough to give me a little bit of a cushion to then get serious about it, 4 years down the road.
Well, so it's very interesting that you started with something and you immediately struck gold. You immediately got this advantage that a lot of people don't, right off the get. And you hear these stories of these people that these quick get rich quick, but then they usually lose it all. But you're saying that you actually took that 3,000, formed a cushion, and then got really serious about trading. Did you give most of that back, or were you able to go ahead?
There were plenty of examples, again, making all the mistakes. But, like some of the things that I first observed, well, when an individual company puts out a press release, we usually get a quick spike and then we give it back. So I learned, I should just sell a little bit into, these press releases. And I learned what sell the news was. But, I made all the mistakes. I gave plenty back along the way, but never all of it. And that's what kept me in the game. And honestly, I shudder to think what would have happened if I lost that $3,000. I wouldn't be a trader right now, and I would have a very different. I would have gone to the 9 to 5 grind. That was my backup plan. If I lose this money, I'll do the 9 to 5 like everybody else. And so, very fortunate that there were plenty of euphoria moves where I'd give back half of it or whatever, but just always ensured that I stayed in the game. Capital preservation is so important.
You are not kidding, brother. And that's why I encourage anybody, when you're listening to anybody out there, when they become a trader or you're a beginner trader, you have all these gurus out there, all these artists, we'll call them, who are more than willing to take your money, but never preach one time about risk management. If you listen to anybody on YouTube, like you listen to me, like you listen to Dan the Man, or any of the other people that I've considered that you follow, one of the biggest things that you need to seek out is if they talk about risk management. And we have already hit risk management, or at least we're about to dive into it a little deeper, because Dan the Man has brought up risk management right off the get. So my question for you is, now that you've seen this and we're kind of growing more into your philosophy, you started learning risk management and kind of selling the news, kind of taking a chunk. How do you control your risk now? I mean, it sounds like you had kind of a grasp on things, and you obviously had to learn risk management or you wouldn't be where you're at today. And I really try to tell people that if you don't have risk management, you won't get to trade again. And if you lose that $3,000 like you did initially, you say you wouldn't be a trader. So you lucked out, you learned some risk management. What are some of the controls that you put in place today?
So
Example,
definitely,
go ahead, please.
go ahead. Definitely a stop loss on every single trade.
Yes, sir.
It's going from vague statements to very concrete. So I think this is going to go up. Okay, now it's going down. Where's my thesis invalidated? At what point do I pull the plug? I don't know. I didn't clearly set that. Whereas now, 39.57 is either the high or low in the uptrend, or I'm wrong. And I know very quickly if I'm wrong because it's a clear, definitive statement. And if that level breaks, I am now officially wrong. And as a trader, I am wrong all the time. Every single week, multiple times, I am wrong. And it's part of the game that you must learn to embrace. And so it's just ensuring that any trade that I get into has a thesis, and I know when that thesis is invalidated.
I tell you what, that is just so refreshing to hear. It's so refreshing to hear when people say that. And one of my favorite sayings is you're a loser unless you're learning. And I am wrong constantly. My hit rate's about 30%, but the reason why is because we are taking small losses and letting our winners run. And so people don't understand that. When you get in this game, you need to learn to be a good loser. You really do, because you're going to take loss after loss. And if you're not learning from those losses, then you're never going to let those winners run. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. Let me just ask you another question about risk management, because one of the hardest things that I have found, and I've actually just talked to a really good friend and trader of mine this morning about position sizing. Now, when you first started out, I just want to jump back again to that 3,000. I'm sure you just took the whole thing and dove right into it, and you said a penny stock. So obviously it gave you that cushion, gave you a large amount of money. What do you do now for position sizing? Because I'm sure you found right away that if you kept doing that, you were going to lose a lot of it. So what do you do now for position sizing?
So it's essential to ask yourself, do I want to be aggressive or conservative? And that depends on where you are. If you're early 20s, or if you don't have a family and a mortgage, you can be way more risk on.
Yes.
That's a factor, but also market environment. You got to recognize the right market environment. And so I've had periods, my career history is just periods of going aggressive and then pumping the brakes and going conservative when the market environment shifts. And so 2017 crypto, I leveled up very significantly in terms of my capital that I was trading with. And from that point forward was then more a mindset shift, where the mindset in that environment was, I'm trying to change my life. I'm going aggressive. I know that I'm opening myself to big drawdowns along the way as I try and compound my gains. But then once I achieved, exceeded all of my goals, I then shifted my mindset to, I'm not giving any of this back. And that's a much more conservative mindset. And I'm still trying to, put icing on the cake every year as I go. But my position size is much less. The amount of capital I'm putting into trades is much less. And it was just a shift of going from extremely aggressive to then now much more conservative to, again, ensure that I do not give any of these gains back.
That is beautiful. That's very well said. I feel like this is the final frontier for me, Dan, is position sizing. Because I even say in my Discord, hey, I'm going to take a starter, as we pull up today, which, by the way, today is 1/18/2025. I probably should have said that in the beginning, but I do want to bring up this, and that's the S&P 500. We're sitting at 597 right now. And I know about 19 hours ago, because I just watched your video, you did a whole exposure on the S&P 500, and it's creating still new lower highs. As you can see, we didn't even breach that previous high, and now on a weekly time frame, we're looking good. But do you use that S&P 500 to reduce or surpass that exposure? And what is the maximum amount in percentage-wise of your account are you willing to risk? Me personally right now is only 1%. I've never gone, well, I can't say I've never gone, but I try not to go over 1% per trade on a loss. I don't want to risk more than 1%. So do you use the S&P 500 as that risk analysis? And if you are full risk on, what's the maximum percentage in your account?
Yeah, it's definitely my gauge. I have two accounts. I got my IRA and I've got my day trading account. The day trading account has a lot more capital as I'm a day trader at heart. I'm shifting more towards swing trading as I try and get off the computer a bit more in life. But it's the kind of thing where, I've got a long IRA because I've been bullish the market, year and a half, 2 years at this point. And I use the S&P 500 to hedge. So, if we're heading right up to a clear resistance zone, I'll grab some short to offset some of my long exposure in just in case we reject from resistance. And I've been doing that a lot on the way up. And, I have no problem stopping out of my hedges because that means my net worth is going up because my long portfolio is going up. And, the amount I'm willing to risk per trade is definitely, as I mentioned, back in 2017, 2018, it was much higher than it is right now because my risk tolerance and my goals and my game plan has shifted. So it's even less than 1% for me at this
Beautiful.
point. 1% would be a pretty solid loss. Again, I've definitely done it at times when, I slip up or whatever the reason. There are also times, just quick example off the top of my head, one of my bigger losses in memory was, I was trading a Netflix earnings reaction after hours, and everything I did right in terms of, my risk tolerance and all of that. But things got so volatile. This was one where it dropped like 20% a couple years ago.
Okay.
And Fidelity just stopped accepting orders in extended hours. And I literally couldn't sell my position because there was such a fervor of activity. And that was not, that's a one in however many hundred scenario that I did not plan for in my stop loss. My stop loss
Of
hit and I
course.
couldn't exit. And so we always have to anticipate the 1 in 1,000 chance that something happens, in the crypto world, FTX blows up, whatever it is. So that's an aspect that you have to calculate in. But yeah, I'd say at this point, really, I'm not risking more than I'd say probably like 0.4% of
Yes.
my just because things are so spread out, across my accounts. But yeah, I got a tight leash on things, and for me, it's just base hits. If you look at my top five biggest wins and my top five biggest losses, you can't tell I'm a successful trader. They're all very similar. And it's the base hits, it's the years, it's the hundreds of trading days of base hits in the middle that makes me a successful trader.
That is very well said. Thank you for that. And now we talked we talked a little bit about something very very scary, and that's in the after hours. You can't exit a trade. You can't really we might set our stop loss in and understand there's some slippage, but when Fidelity quit stops taking in orders, that's kind of hard to manage your risk there, right? So that's terrifying. But I do want to kind of shift here, and I want you to tell me a story about one of your biggest wins, something that made you feel euphoric. And I would like you to go kind of deep into this, Dan, because this is one of my favorite things. It kind of gives me goosebumps thinking about it. One of your biggest wins, something that made you feel just amazing inside, and what you did. Did you do anything to celebrate? Did you call your mom? Did you call, you know what I mean? What did you do exactly? And can you just share a little bit about it? And maybe even the ticker, what type of trade it was that you took? Was it a day or a swing trade? And how it made you feel?
Yeah, so I'll give two examples because one, I don't have specifics. One, the one that stands out in my mind was, when I had a goal of becoming a full-time trader, my mindset was I want to make $100,000 a year. That'll give me everything that I want. That's my goal. And this was in crypto, probably 2017, maybe 2018. But I remember I hit that goal. I hit $100,000 in a day. And I don't remember the trade. I don't remember the specifics of how it happened in my memory, which just goes to show you. And it was also, I didn't do anything different. Not, I had the how is this even real, moment, but, I didn't celebrate. My day was the exact same. And that's why it doesn't really stand out in my
Oh
memory.
my gosh.
So, I definitely was internally celebrating. I think I told one other person out of anybody in my life. And yeah, it's just a fog I remember the event and the mindset and where I was, but I don't remember the specifics of the trade. I mean, it was, probably Ethereum or Litecoin going up a huge amount and I had a big position. But as far as specifics, another one was Canopy, CGC in cannabis. And this was luck. This was me being in a pretty decent position. And the news comes out that Constellation Brands, an alcohol company, was buying a significant stake, however many billions of the company, and it was bearish and not doing a whole lot, and it just shot up in a huge way. And that was another one where it was a $100,000 day. And again, that was luck. That was a news release that was not part of my, and that I can celebrate, but then I also have to play the flip side. What if that was bad news? I would have had a huge loss. That it could have is just as easily gone the other way. And so I have to, remind myself that as well. But those are the two biggest. And again, the biggest losers, definitely comparable size in terms of, things screwing up. But again, it's the everyday grind that makes a successful trader.
Wow. Wow, that's really impressive. I was not expecting you to just shrug off $100,000 like that. I really was not expecting you to say that. But where were you at in your journey when you ended up with that $100,000 win?
So there was a point where when I first got into crypto, I think I put, $28,000, which was a significant amount for me at that point in time. And my goal was my reason for getting in is, okay, new technology, blue sky breakout, all-time highs. I know what can happen in blue sky breakout. So that was my confidence. My technical understanding was my confidence, not even the fundamental understanding. And my goal was to make 100% to get a down payment for a house. And next thing I know, I wake up, 6 months down the line and I'm up maybe 5,000%. And it just stopped becoming real at that point. It's just flashing numbers. You detach where in my earlier days, it's, oh, I just made a used car. That was a
Yeah.
metric for me, a $7,000 win. Like I could buy a used Subaru with that.
Yeah.
And you put the dollar terms in terms of physical things and how this could impact your life. But when you get to a point where it just stops becoming real. It's just numbers. It's like I'm just collecting points, and it's not like, oh, there's a down payment. I lost a down payment for a house today. That's not the mindset. It's just, if I'm up, 1,000% and I see a drawdown of 20%, it's a huge drawdown, but I'm in aggressive mode and I'm trying to, capitalize on insane volatility. And yeah, I'd say it was just a a shift in how I viewed money. And I've carried that with me ever since, where that's essential. It's an emotional detachment from the outcomes, and that's essential as well.
I tell you what, the way you ended that leads me right into my next question, and that's the psychology behind these trades. How do you stay disciplined to avoid over trading, to avoid fixating on the numbers? How do you do it, Dan?
I mean, I've made every single mistake you can possibly make. And what separates those who succeed from those who fail is, number one, you don't blow up. So I never really used any significant leverage, even in, crypto to see those gains. It was volatile enough where I didn't need any leverage. So I've never exposed myself to a scenario where I could blow up. So again, that's capital preservation, but it's trying to find my words. It's I I I don't know. It was for me. It's the mistakes that you make and you don't repeat them. That's the other aspect I wanted to point out. People will get in a rut where they repeat the same mistake over and over and over
Yes,
again.
sir.
But the key to growth and progress is obviously that you make the mistake, you learn from it, and you don't repeat it again. That said, I'm always going to continue repeating mistakes. I will skip my stop loss in a certain scenario. And it's a big mistake. And it's been 3 years since I've done it, but I'll do it. And then it reminds myself, oh yeah, this is why you can't do it. So it's not like, professional traders are now perfect and I don't feel these emotions anymore. The difference is I can observe the emotions as they're happening and not act on them. So I'll still feel FOMO and fear.
Okay.
I used to in my earlier days, I used to play poker in high school. And when I was
Okay.
bluffing, my heart would be pounding.
Yes,
And
sir.
when I first started trading, if I'm in a big trade, my heart would be pounding. That hasn't happened to me in many, many years because you just get used to it. It's almost like muscle memory, and your nervous system gets used to the fluctuations. And once you've done it, if I've seen this dollar amount of fluctuation 500 times, I then become numb to it because it's just the norm at that point. So time and repetition definitely plays a huge part as well.
Time and repetition, the experience of a 14-year trader right there, ladies and gentlemen, and very well said. It was going to bring me into my next question, is how you deal with pressure, but it seems like you have alleviated a lot of that pressure with the time and experience. Also stating that before you used a lot of maybe not so much leverage, but you would use a higher risk percentage of your account. And now you don't need to. You don't feel that pressure to make that money. You're day trading, you're having fun, you're sticking to your process and your routine. So you can take a lot of that pressure off with that time and experience. That's beautiful. Very, very well said. My next question is your improvements. What are you doing to continually to improve yourself now that you are confident in what you do? And you are taking these trades, you know what to expect, you know it's just flashing numbers, you know that you have, progressive exposure over time, and you're trying to slowly lean towards more swing trading. So there has to be improvements in learning and changes in your overall trading. Can you share some of those with us if you have any off the top of your head, please?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I want to find the weak points in my game, things that I can improve upon, and that comes through, self-reflection. And swing trading was one of them a couple years ago. Okay, I want to get better at this. I'm used to being in complete control. I'm used to, the overnight hold with the potential for gaps. I had to get used to that. And so that was an aspect. And then there are things just like, when there were times I'd look at a chart and say, I don't have clarity here. And usually when that's happening, I realize it's a megaphone pattern. You break resistance with no follow through. You break support with no follow through, and you just form this broadening megaphone pattern. And so I say, all right, I want to get better at identifying and recognizing these megaphones and, eventually potentially taking trades off of them. There were other times where falling wedges, I can remember maybe 5 years ago, I want to get better at falling wedges because again, it's another pattern that's easy to get faked out on. You break support with zero follow through. And so it's just identifying these little pockets where I can improve my game. I know, further down the line, years from now, I will want to get good at selling options. I don't do that at all right now. And, potential income strategy around selling options. So that's a future goal that I'm not even working towards at the moment, but I know eventually I will. And so it's always having things that you can improve upon. And that's, every single trader, no matter how long you've been in the game, there's always something that you can improve upon. That's part of the fun, that's part of the self-improvement aspect, both in trading, and then that trickles through to your life, every aspect of your life, because trading is a lifestyle. That's, a benefit as well. My emotional control, thanks to my trading, has bled into my everyday life. And, I now have emotional control in every situation. And it's the fact that leveling up as a trader can level you up in other aspects of your life that helps with that constant drive towards improvement.
Ah, man, I tell you what, you are just spitting some absolute fire today, Dan. I expected greatness out of you, and you are just following through with it. I am so blessed to be in front of you today. Now, I have a few questions for you. I am really, really curious because one of the trades, if you don't mind me asking you about, Abercrombie and Fitch, ANF. I identified Abercrombie and Fitch. Can you see my screen here?
Not at the moment, but I know the chart in my brain without
I'm
even
sure you
looking.
do. So one thing is I was really watching ANF for a trend breakout. And right here on the screen, I was looking at it around 160, about that 155, 160 area. And I kept watching this thing. It's trading sideways. It started getting very, very tight. I actually tried it at 158 the one day and closed out the very next day because it closed below that previous day's low, which is my stop loss because I'm a momentum swing trader myself. And then I caught a nice little video on your YouTube because I really try to watch every one of them. Amazing analysis. And you said that you were hedging against your account like we spoke about earlier. And I think you were using ANF as your hedge. My question for you is, because now we're sitting at 130, we're about to break the bottom low at 130. And if it breaks, it could fall much faster. Obviously, with the psychology of trading, it'll probably pop back up a little bit, maybe in the 140s, 150 area before it continues to head lower. But did it end up stopping you out when it broke that 163, 164 area? Or are you still holding on to this ANF short? And if you are, have you taken profit?
So my mindset initially looking at this trade was, again, identifying the sideways range, what I call an equilibrium. I love being able to position in those as they tighten up, and then we know volatility is coming. My decision to go bearish was running thousands of percent up. The long-term time frame, I was watching the 3-month chart and saying, all right, stair step, high or low every single 3-month candle for thousands of percent. We're going to see long-term consolidation here sooner rather than later. And again, my entire IRA was long. I want to look for something where I can get a little short exposure on an individual setup that I'm comfortable with. And so I made an entry short on one of those lower highs, maybe 6 to 8 weeks ago in the upper 150s, low 160s range. And we pulled back down to support. I wasn't surprised that support held for us to keep tightening up. And where I went wrong, because I did stop out, they got me right at the top.
Yes,
And
that's
this
what
is
I was
something that
worried about.
yeah, this is something we have to accept as traders
Yes, sir.
because I nail the bottom plenty of times and I am nailed as the bottom or top, less
Yes,
times,
sir.
fortunately, but it happens. And, it's a great example of looking back at the things I could have done differently. And, for me, it was, I had a small position size when I first entered. And so my mindset was, it's not even worth taking any profit into support on this position size because the real move that I'm looking for hasn't taken place yet. Now, if I had started with the larger position size, I would have taken partial profit into support, and then my break even would have been, 165, 170, and I would just stick a break even stop and let it play out, and
Yes,
I
sir.
would not have gotten stopped out. So by being in a smaller position and saying I'm just going to let it play out, I'm not really paying attention to this name on a day-to-day basis. It's either going to hit my level or it's going to break down. And then it got me, I didn't have enough wiggle room above resistance because so often you'll see, stops triggered and then we reverse the other way, like a falling wedge or a rising wedge. And that for me it was a good reminder. I've been on a run, a strong, what I call a heater, the last few months where it's like I can do no wrong and it's just flow state. And this was my first, it was a very acceptable loss, the kind of loss where, I don't even know the dollar amount because it's little enough that it doesn't matter. But it was a red trade and it was my first red swing trade in as long as I can remember, which means months. And so that was a nice little wake up call. You're not invincible. You stopped out at the top. There are things that you can learn that you could have done better. And I much prefer when that happens with a small, acceptable red trade rather than a big fat red one.
Now, when I seen this trade and I seen you call it out, I've been following it because I was waiting for the break above. I tried the break above, but then when we broke below a 50-day moving average in the S&P 500, I was risk off. My hands were clean. I was waiting because as a momentum trader, we want to see the S&P 500 in a bull run, obviously. So I continued to keep a very close eye on it because my boy Dan the man, charting man Dan, has this short and I'm rooting for you. But when I seen it break above that key area of 164, close to 160. Yeah, so when it broke 164, which in my opinion, after watching you for so many years, I said, I really wonder if that's where the stop loss was because that's where I would have put my stop loss if I were shorting this because you don't know how much higher this can go. If there are so many shorts in there and it does trigger, it could go much, much higher because that is a trend breakout that I love and know. And sure enough, it did end up stopping you out. And before the show, I asked if I can, hey, can I ask you about this trade, not knowing whether you won or lost? And the first thing you said was, yeah, absolutely. You absolutely can, knowing it was a loss. And that I gotta give you the trophy on that one because we've talked about all your winners, but you are so comfortable with talking about your losses. And I think that's what makes you such a great leader in your community, Dan, is that you are not afraid. You've always put everything out there. And I really try to mimic that with my channel too. I really try to let people know my psychology, what I'm not doing good in, and the losses that I've made, the winners that I make. I really like to boost those up too, obviously. But I really appreciate you bringing that up and letting me bring that up as well.
It's just to cut you off real quick. It's
Please.
important, early on you mentioned, you got to be talking about risk management as a YouTuber or whatever. That's how you know someone's legit. You got to be talking about your losses because if you are not highlighting your losses, then you are hiding something if you are a trader. And, that's a big red flag for anybody you're watching on YouTube. You got to talk about your losses because, again, if you are a trader that has been doing it for any prolonged period of time, you are constantly having losses as well as winners. And so you can't just gloss over one and not the other if you want to get the complete picture.
That I'm so happy you said that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't listen to the gurus out there. Listen to the guys who are losing and learning and then giving you what you can do for risk management so you can learn yourself. So that is absolutely beautiful, Dan. You are bringing the heat for me today, baby. Now I have a silly kind of question. This is going to kind of maybe throw you off a little bit. But when I first started, and I started watching you probably around 5 years ago now, man. I mean, I was honestly blessed to find your channel when I first started trading. That didn't help me keep me from losing a lot of my money when I started, but it at least gave me a path to go down and to learn and understand and grow. And when I first started watching you, the first thing that I learned was the new higher lows, new lower highs. Now, a silly question. Did you coin that? And if you didn't, which I'm probably sure you didn't, but where did you find that? Where did you learn that from? Because for me, that is almost the main source of my trading. I say it on almost every chart. I'm looking for new higher lows, new lower highs, tightening range after expansion. And it seems like all the greatest traders are looking for that on any time frame. I know you like using the 5-minute, the 4-hour, the daily, the weekly. You have confluency across markets, but they are across all time frames. So where did you find that, or who taught it to you, or do you not even remember?
Honestly, I don't remember. It was definitely through observation. So much of my strategy and things like that are just observation. And as you mentioned, it's the most common pattern in any market, in any time frame. It's just you get, a significant amount of volatility. The volatility shrinks. My analogy is the balancing scales where they just slowly supply and demand even out, and then you get a big break one way or the other. And yeah, it's become a joke amongst our followers and stuff. We had a Chart Guys member who created if you look up, I don't know if you'll find it on YouTube, but it's if you look up Charting Man Dan mantra, it's just this like monk still image, but it's like higher low, lower high, higher low. It's like this mantra of higher lows and lower highs. It's too perfect. But yeah, it's constantly something that I'm talking about. And it's even gotten to the point where people's spouses, when they watch me, it's like it's a joke about all the higher lows and lower highs because they don't understand it. They're just hearing a voice,
Yes.
from what their partner is watching on the screen.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, it's just a joke, but it's the backbone of my trading is these price pivot points and identifying trends. And it's just become it's how I'm able to make money in markets, and it's very important.
It is very, very important. It's really the key to my success in trading because after that expansion, those new higher lows, those new lower highs, and I'll just show you guys on my screen really quick what we mean. These here on a daily time frame for Abercrombie and Fitch or ANF, here's the high, here's a new lower high, a new lower high, a new lower high, and here is a new higher low, a new higher low, meaning this is the low, new higher low, new higher low. And that's what we're talking about here. So here's the expansion. And as the new higher lows and the new lower highs start to meet, that is where you get contraction. And that's what we call proper risk reward. That's what we're waiting for because now we know where we're wrong and we know where we are right. And that is where you can get that progressive exposure. You can either, after 5R or 10R or 100%, however you look at your risk management, that's where you can take and exit the trade and yada, yada, yada. So that's what we're talking about here if you're confused. And of course, if you start watching Dan the Man or myself on any of our technical analysis patterns, you're going to hear new higher lows, new lower highs, who's in control, the bears or the bulls. And it's very, very key to trading. And I learned all of that from you, Dan the Man, and I love watching you because it just makes so much damn sense to me. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I'm going to look up the monk. I was actually going to bring up, I remember years ago, you were doing a mantra. It was after one of your technical analysis videos. And I think you were in the sauna and it was like new higher highs, new lower lows, new higher. And so I don't know if that's the same monk one that we're talking about, but it's always been stuck in my head. And it's almost like a meditation kind of thing, and it's a beautiful thing. And I love it. Absolutely love it. That brings up a new question. So I'm talking about where I've learned a lot of my new higher highs, my new lower lows. I always constantly talk about William O'Neill and Dan Zanger and Christian Quilamagi and all these other traders that I have learned about. And they all really trade similar in the long run. But is there any books or references that you, sir, would like to give to the public so they can also like who did you learn from, or is there any books that you would highly recommend, not just new traders, maybe even a seasoned vet?
So I was mostly online with my learning. I didn't start reading my first books about trading, honestly, until like the last 2 years. I was just, born on the internet and stayed on the internet. And, I had a mentor. We were on iHub back in the day. It's a forum. And we were talking about penny stocks, and his name was Osprey. And that's who my initial mentor was, in the sense that, I'm on these penny stock message boards, and it became clear that the dude looking at the chart was right more than the other people. And I say, all right, I want to know what this guy knows. And so I just followed him, and he was very generous answering questions. And he was not a full-on mentor in the sense that, we weren't doing one-on-one sessions, but he would answer questions. He would point me to stuff like, okay, this guy looks at the RSI. I'm going to go down the RSI rabbit hole, learn about it. What is it? How can I utilize it? And he was telling me about moving average trends, the Bollinger Bands. You want the 20-period moving average as your support if you're going to be in an uptrend, things like that. And, the books recently that I've read, I really enjoyed Listening When Markets Speak. And I don't know the author off the top of my head, but Listening When Market Speaks goes over a little bit of the history of the Fed, where we find ourselves now, some potential, outcomes if there's a debt bubble burst, and things like that. I just liked it as a potential. I read this guy's opinion and I say, all right, this could be how things play out. So I want to be aware of that. And, if I start to see things shaping up that are in line with what they're describing, then that will stand out to me. Another one was, Reminiscence of a Stock Operator.
Yes.
That's more of a story, but I enjoyed that aspect of things. And honestly, I'm considering writing a book at some point, whenever I feel like I have enough time. But yeah, those are the two that stand out to me. People always recommend. Oh, what is now slipping the top of my head now that I'm on the spot. I'm not going to remember it, being pressured, but
It's okay.
yeah, I haven't read most of the books that people recommend, and it's just not my style of learning. I would rather watch a YouTube video, and then, the concepts I don't understand, I go out on my own and I use Google, and now you're using AI, but going down rabbit holes in that manner.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing that up. That's actually the first time I heard of that book. And if you guys look at my screen really quick, this is How to Listen When the Market Speaks by Lawrence G. McDonald that Dan the Man has brought up. And then, of course, one of my favorites that I always recommend to people is that Reminiscence of a Stock Operator. And the beautiful thing, if you are not into reading material and you like to listen to things on the fly while you're working, while you're driving, Reminiscence of a Stock Operator is actually free on YouTube. Just type it into YouTube, have that a listen. I literally, this is my go to sleep book. I listen to it every night. I dream about this. I mean, it takes you back in time. But what the beautiful thing about this book is, and I'm really happy you brought this up, Dan, is that emotions do not change. The market has been the same for over 100 years, folks. And this is just his story. The boom and bust and reboom again of these sweatshops. I shouldn't say sweatshops. What were they calling them?
Bucket.
Yes, bucket shops. Thank you very much. And they weren't even trading real stocks. They were just trading on the stocks, but they were trading just pieces of paper. And these people were flushing them out. But I won't give you too much backbone of that. I definitely want you guys to check this out. This will definitely be another listen to me on how to listen when the market speaks. I'll get that audiobook. But of course, check out Reminiscence of a Stock Operator. It's a lot of favorite books for a lot of those seasoned vets. And then, of course, I want to recommend How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill. It's got over 100 different examples on a weekly time frame on those leaders in the market that I always preach about. It's a little bit different than what we've been talking about right now, but definitely some great books there, and definitely something that you guys need to look into. One question that I have, and I think this is a big one, a new trader's just getting started. What is probably the number one key most advice that you want to give to them? And you cannot say risk management, because I'm going to tell you right now, it's risk management. If you don't preserve your capital, you are going to lose. And I know that you were going to say that. So let's say they go down the rabbit hole, they watch my risk management video, and what do they do next? What do they do next, Dan the Man?
So one comment on risk management, and I'll give you the real answer. So
Okay.
it would be stop losses, as you mentioned.
Okay.
But I learned after getting extremely frustrated, because I would tell people you have to have a stop loss on every trade. Literally people that, pay me to be a part of my service, like you're paying me for my advice and my knowledge, and they still would not listen. And so I had to accept that people have to learn the pain themselves for the lesson to stick. And that was an uh, important lesson for me, to not get frustrated, like shaking these people. What are you doing? They got to learn. So, all right, let's say that can't be the answer. I'm going to say you do not expect to be profitable in the first year or even a couple years. And just, you have to view it that it's a marathon, and that the time you are putting in now will benefit you further down the line. And it's the kind of thing where, again, for me, the stars aligned in 2017. I was 7 years into being a trader, and it then became clear that all of the past 7 years were preparing me for this one moment in time to capitalize on this opportunity. And, it's the kind of mindset where someone is saying, man, I'm putting in 100 hours, 200 hours of education. I want this to be paying off. This isn't paying off. And in reality, it can pay off 4 years from now. And so there's endless opportunities in the market. I've seen 8 once in a lifetime opportunities in the last decade. And you just have to accept that it's a slow road. And your break might not. If I told you how much I made in my first 7 years of trading, and anybody wanting to learn how to trade would say, no way. That's a waste. I was earning well below minimum wage. Waste of time. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And then if I tell you what I did the next 7 years, you'd say, I want that. You can't have one without the other.
You have to enjoy and love the journey. If you don't love trading, you won't be in trading for very long. If you love trading, you're going to be surrounded by seasoned vets, but you just got to stick with it. And I think that was a beautifully thing that was said right there. Make sure you guys rewind that, listen to what Dan the Man has to say, rewatch this whole interview. But I have a couple more questions before I let you go, Dan, and I appreciate all your time and all your wisdom that you're sharing with us today. Do you hold any college degrees?
I got that business management, and it helped me in the sense that, I am an entrepreneur as well as a trader. It's, everybody, rightfully so. Why do you need, to sell courses if you're a successful trader? For me, it's a twofold answer. Number one, it's a completely different game. There's an entrepreneur game and there's a trading game, and I love them both. You're using different parts of your brain. It's a different amount of creativity. So it's just a different fun game. Diversifying income streams is great. And a lot of, people in our industry won't talk about this, but the money that I earned being an educator absolutely allowed me to level up as a trader. How? Because for my first 5+ years, I was paying all my bills, my food, everything out of my account, and my account was staying flat. I was not leveling up. And as soon as I added a second income stream, I said, all right, I can go risk on. I'm not withdrawing anything from my account. My living expenses are now covered elsewhere. And that is when I leveled up as a trader. So it was a huge psychological relief. And I'll tell everybody, be an entrepreneur, have multiple income streams,
Yes.
take the pressure off yourself. If you don't have to pay your bills through trading, it's an immense relief off of your shoulders that can allow for more success. And so, I'm forever grateful, in the fact that I'm on a pedestal, in the sense that people are watching me. I have to stick to my rules or I'm a liar. I'm so much better of a trader knowing I'm under a bit of a microscope and putting myself out there. And it's a level of accountability that you can't achieve on your own. And so, it's such a mutually beneficial relationship that I have with, the starting the Chart Guys as a company and being a trader. And that's why it's just this positive feedback loop. A bunch of people fail trading. Absolutely. There's no sugarcoating it, but I have taught people that have now become full-time traders, and there's nothing more rewarding than that. And, again, there's so many different ways that I benefit from that as well.
Dan, this interview has been absolutely amazing. I cannot thank you enough. You really do an amazing service for the community, and I really appreciate everything that you've done, all the time that you've given me today. And I wish you nothing but the best, brother. I wish you nothing but the best. And cheers to you. Cheers to you, sir. I hope you have an amazing life ahead of you, and you just enjoy that beautiful home that you live in and the landscape that's around you. It's a dream. So thank you so
Thanks,
much,
David.
and I hope you have a great night.
You as well. I appreciate it.
Take care, brother. If you've made it this far in the video and you're listening to this now, this is a special thank you that goes out to you for listening all the way through. To show me that you've made it this far, in the comment section down below, spam "We Love Dan." Thank you guys. Have a great night.